Hello and welcome to this edition of Minstrels on the Block, where we bring you the finest singer-songwriters in the Valley area. Today's special guest is the Gary Parmer Trio. Gary Parmer,
Brian,
Eric Buchanan,
Brian,
and Mike Autry.
Brian.
Great to have you all on the show. How are y'all doing today?
Wonderful, wonderful.
So starting with you, Gary. I know you've been around this neighborhood before, but tell me about yourself. Where were you born?
Well, I was actually born in Anchorage, Alaska. My father was in the Army, and so I was born there in the Air Force Base.
Cool.
And of course, I grew up here. I came back to Georgia, I think, when I was a year and a half. And since I was 2 or 3, I grew up in Columbus.
So what your parents did?
Well, you know, like I said, my mother and my father, he didn't have much use for me, so they divorced, but he was a musician actually. He played on the Ed Sullivan Show when it was called the Toast of the Town.
Nice.
In '53, he had a country western band, and they had won one of the theaters in the All Army Talent Contest, and the finals were on the Ed Sullivan Show. So,
very cool.
So he played that, and he reached that level. Mm-hmm. And I remember hearing the band practice in the big living room, which is a little bitty room. But I remember standing around and listening to live music and thinking, that's me right there. I'm going to do that. That's me.
Nice. And going over to Eric, where were you born?
Well, I was born and raised in New York City, interesting enough.
Cool.
However, I always made visits here to Alabama as a child. Every year, probably up until I was about 11 years old. And I have family affiliated all with Alabama, whether it's Chambers County or right here in Phoenix City. In fact, there's a school named, it's not around anymore, Susie Allen Elementary was my grandmother's sister's.
Wow.
And the neighboring church over across the street is named after the family. So I always had an affiliation and appreciation of the South as a child. Interesting enough, my father was born in Chicago, but he said he spent many of his years in Tennessee. Mm-hmm. And he was a musician. Cool. And played in the big bands with Jimmy Lunsford, a short stint with Count Basie. Mm-hmm. So I grew up early just hearing music in the house. And it became a part of me over the years, many years. Mm-hmm. So this is like coming back home in a sense. This is home to me. Mm-hmm. I've been here now 17 years, and truthfully, I've got much more of an education in the music worldly right here in the South, where the music originally came from.
Yeah, very cool. Mike?
Originally born at Fort Benning, Navy brat. Moved up and down mostly the East Coast till Dad got out of the Navy, and then settled back here because his family was from here. Don't really have any musicians in my family. My dad strummed around on the guitar a little bit, and he had an old Silvertone copy of a Les Paul.
Yeah.
And as soon as my hands got big enough to grab that sucker and play it, I was all over it, because I started playing music when I was in the first grade. I played violin and saxophone coming up through school. And as soon as I was old enough to chord a guitar, I was all over it.
Excellent. Now, Gary, at what point, now your dad, was musical. At what point did it click for you? Do you have a defining moment?
Well, I grew up in the church. I started singing in the choir. That's where I learned to sing. I learned to sing harmony, learned to love to sing harmony, learned to love to sing. But then in high school, I got in a band, and I didn't play guitar. I knew some chords, but I couldn't play. I was the singer boy. I was the singer guy. And I graduated high school, and I decided I wanted to play guitar for the girls when the band wasn't there. So I started learning to play guitar.
There's the chicks again. Recurring subject.
So, well, that was it. That's why I started. That's why, like I say, I'm a singer that plays guitar, and that's why honestly, I'm a singer that plays guitar. But what happened is the first time I played 6 nights in a week for a week in a nightclub. Me and my friends played every night and drank beer anyway, so I was getting to go out and I was playing guitar. Well, I was playing bass in that band, but I was drinking beer and playing, and girls came and talked to me, and people were watching, and then at the end of the week they paid me. That was it. That was it for me. That was the defining moment right there.
Light dawn.
I never wanted to do anything else ever again in my life. You know.
Awesome. Eric?
I guess all musicians have some story like that, where the women, it became a rite of passage.
Yes.
Okay, when I was coming up, and this is funny, we moved from Harlem to the Bronx, and in the summers, I remember my mother was a school teacher. She would run a day camp in the summer, and I can remember all these beautiful counselors, these young teenage counselors, and at the end of the camp season, she would always hire a local band, an R&B band. And I can just remember seeing, I won't even forget the name of the group. The group was called the Golden Souls. And I remember these guys playing, and the girls were just going crazy. And I said, yeah, I want that. And then I remember my father seeing my reaction and pulling me aside and telling me when he was a kid in Chicago, he remember watching a band play. It was the swing era. And it was just starting. All these girls run around this guy playing a clarinet. He said it was like a snake charmer. And he said, oh man, I got to do that. So he said, you were truly my son. From there, I picked up the trumpet. I started playing the trumpet. And I remember my brother and myself, we had a band, and it was just this sense of being important to the world, and you could make people move, you could make them react like nothing else. I wasn't athletically inclined. I remember I used to think I was, and then all these other guys would beat me in ball and everything. This was mine, and this was my chance to shine. And from then on, that's where it spawned me to be this musician from life.
Nice. These are the best stories ever. So, Mike, how about you? Now, you said once you could get your hand around the guitar, you said that was it.
Well, for me, it was the difference. Playing in an orchestra and in a band is highly structured. You play your part. You compete for chairs within the section. I've played for conductors. If you messed up your part, he'd throw his baton at you. And I've seen music stands get pitched, batons get thrown, hissy fits pitched. And then from there, going from that structure to, and as I started playing guitar and I discovered sex, drugs, and rock and roll.
This is the best minstrels ever.
And listening to the popular music at the time, yes, I was a Beatle nut, and I remember that, and sitting in my room, learning songs, playing guitar, and then I discovered some like-minded souls, and voila, a band, And guess what? No structure. Nobody's throwing things at me. And then, we play at a party. Oh, and all the women are paying attention. Oh,
women paying attention.
Women are paying attention. Oh, and you can eat and drink all you want, and when you're done, we're going to give you money. This is the life.
We know there's a theme here. I tell you what, let's go check out some of their songs, and we'll be right back right after this.
Don't you know? Everybody wants somebody. pocket change. He's got more Nikes, wife ain't got no gold. Can't hit the pawn shop, the TV done been sold. This being told now, you know it's getting old. Hey, hey, hey. Everybody wants a little, don't you know? Everybody wants some pocket change. Everybody wants a little everything. Everybody wants some pocket change. Kids got no Nikes, and I just can't pay my bills. Credit collectors, they just won't make no deals. This being poor now, you know I've had my fill. Hey, hey, hey. Everybody wants a little, don't you know? Everybody wants some pocket change. Everybody wants a little every day. Everybody wants some pocket change. Everybody wants some. Everybody needs some. Everybody wants a little. Everybody wants some pocket change.
Welcome back to this edition of Minstrels on the Block. We bring you the finest singer-songwriters in the Valley area. This week's special guest, the Gary Parmer Trio. So now, I placed this question at different times in the show, just for, the punch of unpredictability. But this is the most important question of the entire show. And Gary, we'll start with you. Elvis or the Beatles?
Beatles.
That's a hard question now, because even, I look at where Elvis comes from, and we talk about blues and the whole legacy. With the Beatles, interesting thing you say about the Beatles, and I picked the Beatles as far as songwriters, because when they came here, they were looking for muddy waters, where America wasn't quite there yet.
Yeah.
They had already...
They were there.
They were there. They knew their homework.
And had been there.
And had been there for a while. Exactly.
They were
so
doing covers.
If we're going to do that comparison, the Beatles, because of their study and knowledge of where it came. Elvis knew that too. Mm-hmm. So we can't leave him out of the equation at all. Yeah. Because he was very knowledgeable about these folks, where he went and saw many of the greats. Mm-hmm. That's not talked about a lot.
Yeah.
But we need to talk about those things more, how that brought us together in this world.
That's a really good answer. Mike?
For me, it's hard to compare the two. Elvis, obviously, just a vocalist the world has never seen.
Right.
And I agree with Eric, and as far as his gospel and his soul background,
That's right.
it's incalculable what he brought to the business.
That's right.
But as far as songwriting and taking it taking the group to a whole different level
Right.
that has never been done before, I'd have to go with the Beatles.
Right.
That has to be the most legitimate answer I've ever gotten from that question before. That's actually good information, fellas. I appreciate it. Now, back to the Gary Parmer Trio. Now, we got a little bit about each of your backgrounds. Tell me a little bit about the background of this band.
Well,
Well,
I started doing trios again back in '96 or whatever, and I've been searching for this trio since then. But I always used someone else's name. I would name it after the drummer or whatever. I didn't want to be in the limelight. Just wanted to, play. But in around '07, I stopped playing in bands much and started doing single acts a lot. A lot. And I actually quit playing in bands except doing pickup work here, there. And so when Mike and I hooked up, we decided that to use my name because it's more familiar. So I said, well, let's use that familiarity, and we'll just call it the Gary Parmer Trio because that's all it's been all along anyway.
Yeah.
And so may as well get around to it. Mike joined me in Thanksgiving weekend of next year will be 3 years, so it was 9.
oh, no, 09.
09.
Yep.
I had been using a couple of other different, Larry Rose, for instance, Robert Earl Lowry. They both worked with me in my trio. It was kind of like I had a different drummer, Jimmy Bryan, and it was just a revolving. Yeah, I have several people that can work with me and work with me. Well, Eric and I got a chance through Mike Jones met us, and we played some gigs back before you went to Thailand.
Right. What's it time? Indonesia.
Indonesia,
okay.
Right. Before you went to Indonesia, we played some gigs together, and it was like, man, we want to get together. Well, when he comes back from Indonesia, he calls me, and I'm thinking, this is great, but I have a drummer, and I'm a loyal guy. I says I can't book a gig, but if you book a gig, well, me and my bass player will come play it.
Right.
Because we're all entrepreneurs. I mean, but it's strange how life works out. It wasn't 2 weeks, was it, Mike, before Jimmy decided to give his notice?
Very shortly after that.
It was maybe 2 weeks. The drummer that I'd been playing with for about 10 years says, Gary, I got this chance to do this and play a house gig, which is what I love. A guaranteed 6 months house gig.
Nice.
I said, well, okay, I understand, no problem. He says, now I'll play these other gigs you got booked. I said, no, don't worry about it. Not a problem. I got off the phone. I called Eric.
That's right.
And we had a band right then. I called Mike. Mike didn't know Eric.
I called you because
because Mike's upset. He's saying, Jimmy called me and he quit. What are we going to do? I said, Mike, I got it covered. Don't worry. I've already taken care of it. But Mike didn't know Eric, so he didn't.
Right.
They'd never met. So I said, don't worry. It's taken care of. So about 2 days later, we rehearsed at my house, basically kind of like what we're going to do here, and we get through the rehearsal, and Mike says, yeah, we're okay.
I feel much better.
So, as far as the band is concerned, where would you like to see the band go? What are your ultimate goals for the band?
I'd say next rung on the ladder, which would be the nicer, higher paying job market. Even if it involves traveling a bit, we don't want to. The whole thing is we Eric and I, we want to be around our kids, and we don't want to travel
Right.
too much anymore. That's why he's not in Indonesia. But for the short term, working regular, which we're knock on wood, is starting to happen finally. Since
Very cool.
Eric joined us,
What was this?
It's almost a
It'll
year
be
now.
I think near October or September.
September.
Late September.
But we've made more progress since Eric joined the band than I made the 3 years previous to that.
Wow.
But of course, now the groundwork that I laid those 3 years
Right.
was what enabled us to get an opportunity. But once we got an opportunity, these guys, I mean, it's like I'm in hog heaven, as they say, because these guys build such a great platform to work from as a guitar player. I mean, they make my job so easy.
Awesome.
After we sat around and talked after meeting for the first time, I think we could clearly see that we were pretty much just individuals on the same page about a lot of things in general in life, which is very important. I can remember Miles Davis himself, the great jazz innovator, saying that often if he brought a new musician into his tribe or his group, it was more important that he already recognized the talent, but he needed to know where this person's mind was at, because it would also not just involve getting along, but the camaraderie of putting music together, whether it's live or on tape. It was this person's thought. So sometimes you listen to musicians and you wonder why certain groups worked. Where were they at mentally as people? What colors did he paint? And he knows, okay, you're good at purple. I want you to put that in the music. You have to know that. And that's something that's almost intuitive. It comes about in a gradual way, or it can come about immediately. But that was the thing I felt when I met these two gentlemen and I played with them first time. And we come from very eclectic music backgrounds.
Yes.
That's what's so deep.
Yes.
Very
All
cool.
three of us.
Let's check out another one of their songs, and we'll be right back right after this.
Do you still think of me? Do you? Do you still think of me? When they play our favorite song, oh babe, you know the one. Do you ever think of when? Do you remember then? Do you still think of me? Do you? Do you still think of me? Walking hand in hand with me, think of how it used to be. Soft words, a tender kiss, that smile I'll always miss. Do you still think of me? Do you? Do you still think of me? they play our favorite song. Oh, babe, you'll know the one. Do you ever think of when? Do you remember then? Do you still think of me? Do you? Do you still think of me? When they play our favorite song, do you still think of me? When they play those songs they're playing, do you still think of me? When they play our favorite song, do you still think of me? Do you still think of me? Still think of me? Do you still think of me?